Hello and Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Fatin Nabila binti Shamshol Bhari, and my other member is Staeffy Daeineira Sudin. So today we are going to present to you about the short story that Madam Izzati assigned us to do, which is Premium Harmony. So first, let's go to the introduction. Introduction. Premium Harmony is a short story by American author Stephen King. It was published in the November 2009 issue of the New Yorker magazine. Stephen Edwin King, or Stephen King, was born September 21, 1947. He is an American author of horror, supernatural fiction, suspense, crime, science fiction, and fantasy novels. His books have sold more than 350 million copies, and many have been adapted into films, television series, miniseries, and comic books. For your information, King has published 61 novels, including 7 under the pen name Richard Batman, and 5 non-fiction books. He has also written approximately 200 short stories, and most of which have been published in book collections. Next, we go to the setting. The setting that I found in this short story is Castle Rocks, which is, if you guys ever read King's other works, he always choose Castle Rock as his fictitious city. So in this short story, Premium Harmony, the city is almost abandoned and run down. Next, plot. There are 5 types of plot, which is exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So first, let's go to the exposition. The first plot is exposition. So exposition that I found in this story is it's the story of a couple, Ray and Mary Bucket. So the story begins with the state of their marriage. They have been married for 10 years, and they were childless, nearly bankrupt, and they fight a lot. So basically, his wife was barren, overweight, constantly bickered him on his smoking, and over almost anything. So a bit, extravagant for Ray on tests. Next, rising action. Rising action that I found in this story is he bought her a dog, which is Ray bought a dog for his wife, a Jack Russell named Beast, whose loyalties turned to her, and the three of them at the same time were on their way to Walmart to buy grass seed for their lawn, which she insisted is needed to be able to sell the house. The third plot is climax. The climax in the story is Mary demands they stop at a convenience store first because she said that they need to purchase a purple kickball for their niece's birthday. And while in there, in that convenience store, she suffers a heart attack and immediately dies. The fourth plot is falling action. So there, in that convenience store, 2 things happen one after the other, giving Ray the freedom that he didn't know he wanted. So yeah, he was finally free of a suffocating adult marriage, and yeah, he was looking forward to a bright future. Lastly, resolution. Resolution in this story is finally Ray was settling for less in his life. Cheap cigarettes, as well as a boring life with a fat, disagreeable wife, and an ungrateful dog who loves his wife more than him. Just to survive or to exist. Before this, he was trapped and didn't have the guts to get out of it. So the solution was taken out of his hands in a span of 1 hour.
So the next point is themes. Themes that we could identify in this short story is that life is unpredictable. In this story, Ray lost Mary, his wife, and also their dog Bees. Before Mary collapsed in the store and died because of heart attack, they were both seen arguing in the car. Ray, still shocked and couldn't process at the event because when both of them are arguing in the car, Mary doesn't show any sign of sickness at all. Also in this story, the old man in the store also lost his wife while she was sleeping in the couch. And again, the wife doesn't show any sign of sickness at all. This is why life is unpredictable and we wouldn't know what will happen next. Let's get into the next points, which is tones. There are three tones that we could identify in this short story. The first tone is aggrieved. Ray was annoyed with Mary's behavior, who always likes to get everything in her way. Example excerpt that we could find from the short story is, he feels a great weight pressing down on his head. She'll get her way. She always does on things like this. He sometimes thinks marriage is like a football game and he's quarterbacking the underdog team. He has to pick his spots, make short passes. Next is ambivalent. In the short story, Ray was not sure of what to do when Mary lying unconsciously. Example excerpt that we could find from the short story is, Mary, Ray says, louder this time, but he can't quite bring himself to shout, not down on his knees with people standing around. He looks up and says, apologetically, she never gets sick, she's healthy as a horse. And the last point from tones is earnest. Mr. Gosh feels sympathy towards Ray. Therefore, he gives the kickball, which was meant for Mary's niece, for free. Example excerpt that we could find in this short story is, Mr. Gosh takes a purple kickball from the wire rack and holds it out to Ray in both hands. On the house, he says. Thank you, sir, Ray says, trying to sound equally solemn. And the woman with the burgles burst into tears. Mary, Mother of God, she says. Next is figurative language. There are 5 figurative languages that we could identify in the short story, which are imagery, simile, metaphor, personification, and hyperbole. The first one is imagery. The example excerpt that we could find in this short story is, Bees is dead on his back. His eyes are milky. His tongue is protruding from the side of his mouth. Ray can see the wink of his teeth. There are little bits of coconut caught in his whiskers. Next is metaphor. The example excerpt that we could find sounds like this. He sometimes thinks marriage is like a football game and he is quarterbacking the underdog team. Next is simile. The example excerpt is, Snowball still in its wrapper. He pokes it. It's as stiff as a corpse. Fourth one is personification. The example excerpt is, a car goes by pulsing red. Last one is hyperbole. The example that we could find sounds like this. When they argue, they're like greyhounds chasing the mechanical rabbit. You go past the same scenery time after time, but you don't see it. You see the rabbit. Issues that we can find in this short story is the relationship between a husband and a wife. This short story depicts the image of many marriages today. Marriages where boredom and indifference has set in, and love, the glorious feeling they had at the beginning, had faded in the background of monotony. As we can see in the short story, Ray and also Mary is the perfect example of dull marriages. Why? because both Ray and Mary stuck in their 10 years of marriage, childless, nearly bankrupt, and arguing a lot of times in their lifetime.
Moreover, we move to the critical analysis. So, overall, I really enjoyed this story. It was short and entertaining. I basically took this story as a cautionary tale of how bad a relationship can get. While I've never been married, but I found the conversation between Ray and his wife to be interesting, if not somewhat hilarious and depressing at the same time. So they have been married for years, and I wondered to myself if, you know, if all couples fight like this, because I certainly haven't fought with any of my exes or current boyfriend quiet like they did. Anyways, the fighting really reminded me of a bunch of old birds picking at each other. So much so that I actually thought Ray and his wife were a lot older than what's said later in the story. I do find something of a flow in that, since by then I had a completely different mental image of the two of them fighting in the car. Next, the plot. Oh yeah, the plot for the story was super simple but well written and enjoyable. The ending also very relatable and bittersweet note. Ultimately, I recommend this short story to anyone, to you guys. It's free, it's entertaining, and it's Stephen King. What have you got to lose? It's definitely worth to read. Last but not least, we move to the moral values. There are two moral values that are found in this short story. The first one is family, especially marriage, and the second one is respect. The first moral values: family, marriage. So we know that if you guys read this short story, you guys you know that Mr. Ray and Miss Mary are married for 10 years and they live happily. But everything changed their life as they go through a lot of obstacles, which is they were childless, nearly bankrupt, and arguing a lot. So, as if you guys did read the short story, you guys can see that Miss Mary are less taking care of her husband anymore. Like she she just taking care of the dog only, not her husband. and and we can see also that their marriage in the state of in a bad condition. The second moral values is respect respect everyone. Basically, it is important for us to respect someone or everyone in this world, because if we respect others, they will respect us too. So the example that I found in this story is Miss Mary less respect her husband, as she always make a fight of her husband, and apparently don't like in anything her husband wants to do, because yeah, she always complain about everything that Mr. Ray do, that I think uh, it is not a good behavior for your husband, right?